Today, I'm joined by Brett Graham, who spent nearly 11 years as a management consultant at PwC before making a pretty bold decision to walk away, go back to university, and completely reinvent his career. He's now a graduate urban planner at Savills in Brighton, working towards his chartership. And I think his story is going to resonate with a lot of people listening. Let's welcome Brett to the podcast. Well, Brett Graham, welcome to the What Do You Do podcast. It is wonderful to have you here.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Well, I normally ask people, firstly, tell me a bit more about what you do for a living, but I think it might be a bit more pertinent to ask how you ended up on the podcast. So
100%. It's been a long time coming, 2 years plus?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically me and my friend were in a bar in Brighton, having a great time, and then Claudia approaches me you were approaching me because your friend was too scared to approach me. So Alfie, if you're watching this, but anyways, we got chatting. Claudia, she was like, "Oh, do you live here?" I was like, "No, I'm actually going through a career change. I'm retraining and I'm moving to London. Me and my friend is here for the weekend." She was like, "Oh, I'm actually in recruitment. Like, this is really interesting, blah, blah, blah. I should get you on my podcast." That was 2 years ago. I was like, "Cool, sounds good." Never heard from Claudia again. Right. So life happens. I do the masters, which I'll go into in terms of what I'm doing now. Ended up getting a job in Brighton, which wasn't on the plan, but incredible. And then we're in a managed office here at the company I'm at. And there was a social thing on, get chatting to this girl I'd seen her around the office, we'd said hello a couple of times briefly. And then she was like, "Oh, how come you're not," it was a Halloween party. "How come you're not dressed up for Halloween?" I was like, "I've just moved here, I've no costume," which is such a shit excuse. And then I was like, did a career change? She was like, "Oh, I did similar. I used to own a recruitment company." And I was like, "I've met this girl before." This is a year and a half later. And I was like, "No way." I was like, "I think I've met you before." And you looked at me like, "What?" I was like, "Do you have a podcast?" And you were like, "No way." And I was like, "You still haven't got me on the podcast." So anyway, I still think it's the craziest thing. What a full circle moment. And then you messaged me, a few weeks ago saying, "Babes, it's finally time. Would you want to go on the podcast?"
Exactly. And
So,
here we are today, and all the better for seeing you. And we're very lucky to have you in the Brighton ecosystem.
I love it.
All right, so let's get into it a little bit more. So for anyone who doesn't know know you, tell me a little bit more about what you do for a living.
So I am now a graduate urban planner, city planner. And I thought, I was like, this is an apt background. I'm actually in the office right now because it's probably the best lighting and the best sound and everything.
And for those just listening, we've got a map behind Brett's head for context as well.
Yes, a map of the southeast.
So tell me, what does a graduate urban planner actually do? What do you do on a day-to-day?
Super cliched answer of every day's different. But yeah, so ultimately we are working with clients to navigate the planning process. So it may be someone who's considering buying a brownfield site, and we would do a site appraisal to see what the planning constraints are, what the opportunities are. If there's something that's like a showstopper where it's like, no, just give them objective advice. Writing planning statements, which is basically justifying why something should be given planning approval, putting in a planning application. A couple of days ago, sat on a pre-app meeting with Brighton Council to get early feedback before submitting an app. Honestly, it's brilliant though. A lot of client face-to-face interaction, which has definitely helped me. My previous experience has definitely helped me with that. So yeah, it is very varied, but it's really interesting and it's always changing.
So when you say clients, are you referring to specifically councils? Who are your typical clients?
Clients would tend to be people who ultimately want to get planning permission. Okay. So it might be a big house builder. It may be a small business owner. It may be someone who literally has some land that they maybe want to see what they can do with, even garden centers, national parks and things, so many things actually need planning permission.
Sure.
Yes, you speak to a lot of frustrated people who are frustrated with the planning system, but we're on the private sector side of it. So we're kind of you do get shot as a messenger, but you just have to help them navigate it. But we do interface a lot with local authorities because they're the ones who will grant planning permission. So you have to have a good relationship with them also. So while they're not your clients, that being able to build a rapport and stuff definitely helps, because some stuff that I've got approved probably could have, if you didn't have that rapport, so almost easier for them to just say, no, sorry, we have to refuse this. But actually, it's like, no, let's
Oh.
chat this through, overcome what the issues are, that sort of things. Because they will, they've so much on their plate, local authorities, from under resourcing, that they will refuse something just if it's, if you don't give them everything they need instead of working with them, they'll just say, sorry, no. And then you have to go back to the start and do it again. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Good insights. So, what are the things that you love about the role and things you don't like so much about the role? Be honest.
Okay, so I love the built environment in general. City nerd, architecture nerd. I just adore everything about the built environment. So I just find that element of it so fascinating. I think being able to actually look and see something like a literal tangible site and looking at it and being like, this is starting to get built, or just being able to see and touch stuff, which was something I really didn't like about my previous role, which I'm sure we'll get into. Also, I do love how sustainability is at the forefront of the built environment now in planning policy. So being able to incorporate sustainability into that and seeing how beneficial things can be to the wider community. I think a lot of people think that especially when it comes to development in general, is bad, but actually, we need more houses built, and it's, now more than ever, because planning policy dictates it. You need to make sure that these are actually places for people to live in and, be happy in and stuff. So it's good to kind of be part of that. It's also literally every day is a school day. Like, I'm learning every single day. And I feel like in my previous role, I wasn't. And that's no criticism of it. It's just, this makes me tick. And, planning policy changes all the time, even at a local level and a national level. So like, my colleagues here who've been doing this for 20 years, like, sometimes I'm telling them stuff they didn't know because something's changed in a certain local authority that I just happen to be aware of and they weren't yet. So in terms of not liking the slow pace of the planning system, very different from consulting, which is my previous role. That's definitely one of how slow things
So,
are. It's just a resource issue.
so how long does it take to get a project over the line?
It totally depends on the scale and nature of it, but something really, really minor, months and months and months. And it's just the nature of the planning system, unfortunately, that we have to navigate.
I think we can see that playing out in real
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I think everyone can.
Okay, so tell us a little bit how you actually ended up at Savills in urban planning, because obviously you worked nearly 11 years at PwC as a management
Yeah,
consultant.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
not necessarily an obvious route into urban planning.
yeah.
So, how did you get here?
So, I did geography at uni as an undergrad a long time ago, and if anyone who's watching this, if you're in planning or end up in it, there is a very clear geography to planning pipeline, which I'm now seeing very much so. Ultimately, I think PwC management consultant was never the place for me, really. I fell into that. So I finished my undergrad and I just went to uni because you just went to a school where they just push everyone into uni. Anyways, I enjoyed geography. It was like, right, I'll do geography at uni. Came back, went abroad for a couple of years, came home, and then bumped into someone who worked at PwC. He was like, you should apply. It was a graduate program. It's a really good company, and I really advocate for them as a company to work for. It was on their management consulting graduate scheme, specifically within technology. And you get so much training and you're constantly doing so many things. And it was so much travel that you didn't really have time to take a breath. And before you know it, you're going for promotion, then the next and the next. So I was just there for quite a while. It was whenever COVID then happened and all the travel stopped, and I like lived on my own. So you're just sitting at a computer for like 8, 9, 10 hours a day. I was like, actually, now that I am just in the content and I really have time to like take stock, I do not like this. And I've always just been a bit of a city geek and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, do you know what? Gonna go and completely change up everything. I'd finally got to the point where I was on a salary that I was like, this is good. Like, and I'm like, oh no, but of course I'm going to leave now, aren't I? So, and yeah, so it was pretty much, I think I was always meant to be here. In fact, I don't think I know now that I'm in this role. I was always meant to be in this role, in this field. Um, it was just what fell into PwC. But don't get me wrong, had loads of amazing experiences there, loads of transferable skills. I don't regret any of it. I don't think it was a mistake to go there. I just know it wasn't the place for me for the rest of my career. I'm going to be working for.
Well, you did,
So
a good innings. 11 years is a fair amount of time.
yeah,
Definitely. So talk me through your thinking around making the pivot. Where did it come from? Where did the ideas originate from into urban planning?
I think again, it came from what I was actually passionate and interested in. And I was like, I should really be working in a field that I actually care about and want to be involved in and almost want to, well, be part of. Like, I want to look at that building and say I was part of the process of that, like getting that over the line for that to get permission to be built. And you are working with like architects, surveyors, so many people all the time that it genuinely is like massive team effort before then the builders come in and start actually building it.
Yeah. So it sounds like you had a bit of a understanding of what it involved before you went into it. So how did you get that
Somewhat.
foundation of knowledge?
Yeah. So I also knew a couple, I was friendly with a couple of planners as well. And they were like, right, you'd be great at this, like go for it. And I was just like, fuck, I'm going to do it. So had to ultimately, in planning, you need to get chartered. So I had to go back, retrain. So I decided to take a career break, which is where the 11 years at PwC comes from, because I was ready to go probably 7, 8 years in.
Mm.
And then I was like, well, I know I want to change career. Obviously, you can only start the master's like every September, but I also knew I was like, my job is far too demanding to do this part time. It needs to be full time. So I had to save up. So there was a lead time into it to save up to be able to like financially manage this situation. Then there's the 13 months of career break. Basically, it's just the way it worked. You have to take it monthly increments. So I was out of PwC for 13 months, and then I knew I have to go back to graduate level. There's no way around it. Like nowhere will hire you above grad/assistant planner unless you're chartered, without being chartered, sorry. So, and so many people were like, but you know, you've so much corporate experience, surely you can go in higher. And I was like, you just can't. Nowhere will hire you as a planner if you're not chartered. So I knew it was going to be back to grad level. So I went back to PwC then after the career break and basically just saved money to kind of cushion that. That's been the biggest drawback, not necessarily about the job, but just the pay cut and that adjustment. So we can chat about that anyways. I'm sure we'll get into that, but that's definitely my advice has been just if you are going to completely retrain, just be prepared for that element of it. Cause
Well, let's get
yeah,
into it now. So, what advice would you give to anyone who is looking to make a career pivot? We typically advise like 6 to 12 months of like living expenses. That's obviously not always the most realistic situation for everyone, but what would you recommend?
so can you clarify in terms of, do you mean in terms of like a cushion behind you or what?
Yeah, for just for living expenses, exactly. Say, for example, you do need to retrain. So obviously you need to set aside a budget to
Yeah.
pay for your either if you are doing a master's or you could get obviously a postgraduate loan if you're in
Yeah.
the UK. Um, Aside from that, you need to consider paying for yourself and also take into account
Ex-
that you might have to take a pay cut. So
yeah.
what would your
So, I
advice be?
mean, I don't, if I'm honest with you, I don't know if I ran the numbers. Part of it, but that's a personal
You were just earning too much
personal
money,
flaw.
Brett.
No, God, no, 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 no. I wish. It's just, I mean, I said it. I think just, I made sure that I looked and be like, right, this is what my monthly mortgage is. This is generally like living expenses. These are direct debits and stuff. And I just set myself a personal target. That's going to be different for everyone. But, I'm kind of tongue in cheek saying I didn't run the numbers. Like, you kind of know what your outgoings and stuff are. I would probably say it was about maybe roughly around 6-ish months worth in terms of what I saved up for. Maybe it was maybe about 4-ish, but I worked in a restaurant. So I was Monday to Friday in the library, 9 to 5, because I was like, this is such a big risk to do this. I'm smashing this. Like I have to smash it. So I was like 9 to 5, 9 to 6 in the library, Monday to Friday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights I was working in a restaurant as well. So it was quite like it was a lot, but
Grafting.
I did loved it. It was very grafting. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely if you like, I'm not in a position where my parents can like bankroll me, and that's no criticism. It'd be great if they could, you know what I
Not
mean?
many people
But
can,
I
sadly.
know, no, I know. But so I was definitely like, right, this is me doing this myself completely. So that was the biggest thing, and it was definitely a lot of saving beforehand. So that my advice would just be make sure, as you say, what you need to kind of survive. Consider that you may need to take a part-time job, and it may be a lot, but it's been so worth it for me. It definitely wasn't a rash decision. It was very thought out, hence the very long timeline to actually get here. And then, yeah, that's why I went back to PwC and just made sure that then I kind of had another cushion for navigating that pay cut as well. And because Brighton's not a cheap place, it's, you know what I mean.
It's
So
basically
it's
a mini London.
and I've been like it's been a double whammy for me because I've taken like a pretty decent pay cut plus the fact I'm living somewhere more expensive, whereas Belfast isn't. It's not like super cheap, but rent and my mortgage wasn't much, and so yeah,
Okay.
just make sure that you're comfortable with the numbers, and it may seem scary, but I have never been more skint, but also never been happier. So that's
There we go.
this is it. Money really isn't everything. I would love more of it, but I do like it has taught me that it doesn't bring happiness. It may bring a slight stress relief, but
Well, look, my research into understanding motivation at work related to meaningfulness and having meaningfulness in your job
yeah,
really resulted in higher motivation. So that
100%.
definitely is shown in the research. Okay, so I've been definitely hearing quite a few stories of people at the moment who are, in their, I don't know, mid to late 30s, 40s, and they're thinking, I've been working in this career or at this employer for quite a while, maybe like 10 plus years, and I have no idea what else I could do with my skills. So when you were in that in-between space, figuring out what was next obviously came quite naturally to you. But what do you think that people actually would need to figure out what they could do next?
I was having a pretty similar conversation with a friend who's in marketing, and I think he's got the point where he's like, I don't know if this is for me anymore. And he was a bit clueless. And actually, I literally sent him the "What do you do?" up because I was like, "This is like exactly." I think just being able to understand all of the skill set that you've built up and where that could actually translate to. I think as I was in the fortunate position where I knew what I wanted to go into, but what I really did not appreciate was, to me, it was PwC management consulting. Oh my God, like I want to go and do planning, total retrain, start from scratch again. And yes, in certain ways, like technically and hierarchically, 100%. But I didn't really realize how much transferable skills I had got. I knew things like general project management, and there's these things that will be useful, but actually, there's so many other things that you've picked up over the years that you can bring across to so many different roles. And I think that would be one bit of advice for people who just think, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like what I do. If they don't know what direction they want to go in, it's so powerful for them to have a tool where they can literally put in what they do, see all of the skill set that they have, some of which they'll know, some of which they don't, and then help them navigate where the kind of pivots are, because you really don't realize how much skill set you build up in anything, even like in the restaurant I was in. Like a lot of people, you can tell people who haven't worked in hospitality because they kind of think, oh, and I'm like, you learn so much transferable stuff.
Do you think?
Managing 500 things at once, putting out fires, everything. Like, but you genuinely at the time, you maybe don't realize it, but so I think just being able to actually see that and see this is what I've got. This is all of the options. This is what translates, and having that in front of you is so powerful because so many people don't have it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because my parents ran a fun casino business. So we go to events all around the UK and set up casino entertainment. So I was trained in blackjack, roulette, and Texas Hold'em poker. And
Love it.
I learned a lot of skills then that I totally didn't underestimated because I got trained when I was 18.
Yeah.
To really hold a room with ultra high net worth people as well, because we did some seriously cool events across even down in Nice in France. So that taught me a lot. So that resonates 100%. Okay, brilliant. So what would you say to someone sitting in a job day to day where they're just thinking there must be more to life. That looks great on paper, but actually just feels completely wrong and has no idea what to do about it. What would you suggest to them?
I could not recommend more just going for it. Like, honestly, everyone's going to be different, whether it starts with just actually sitting back and thinking, what is it I want to be doing? And then, using something like what do you do to actually help them navigate that? Or if they were like me, where they did think, actually, I want to, they know maybe have a better idea of what to go into. I still think in hindsight, it would have been class to have that to hand at the time for me, even to maybe help me. There might have been different steps I could have taken to get there quicker, but at the highest level, without thinking of everyone's individual scenarios, I would definitely say pursue what you actually want to do. Or if you're really not happy, you maybe don't know what it is you want to do, take the steps to find out, because I honestly am so delighted I did it.
Yeah.
So happy. And I just couldn't recommend it enough. Yeah, the money thing's a bit scary initially. Like, money comes round again. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. And I think one of the benefits of our assessments is that they identify obviously your current skill set, map them to new career pathways or similar career pathways. And then our psychologist coaches can really help you unpick like where your barriers are. If you have psychological barriers
Yeah.
around like confidence or clarity or even just having direction, that's where they can really support you on your next step. So we've seen lots of wonderful people go through the program already, which is brilliant.
I think if someone told me, or if I even knew myself this at the time, if someone said, yeah, you can do this career change, but from this moment, it's going to take 4+ years, I actually maybe would have maybe would have put me off. And I think that would have been such a mistake. So I do think that even if you think this is going to be, it potentially like a long haul to do this, like 4 years feels like a year ago still when I think back to some of that. So it's just stick at it, and hard work, really, it does pay off, and it will be like so worth it. Like, it's weird. Like, again, as I say, I don't want to, like, I really advocate for PwC. I think they're a really good company to work for. I learned a lot there. I've still got some really good friends who are there and they're smashing it, and I'm delighted for them. It just wasn't the place for me. And it actually took me quite a while to realize that. And now that I'm in a role that I love and I know I should be here, it's funny. I look back like so many times. I'm like, I absolutely love this. This is amazing. Like, I just never ever had those thoughts in that role. I just didn't realize at the time that it wasn't the place for me.
What made it the place that wasn't for you? What didn't you like about it?
I just never really got much personal job satisfaction. So it's probably helpful for me to explain like what my day to day was there. It was working on big, mostly tech transformation programs, but I ended up, the thing was, you join a management consultancy as a graduate, they'll put you on anything. And if you do something well once and then you maybe do it again, and then a partner director has worked with you, they'll be like, oh yeah, get Brett on that. Then before you know it, you've done 3 or 4 procurement roles, and then you're going for promotion and you've built up a procurement skill set, which is what I had done. So while I was a management consultant in technology programs, it was mostly within procurement roles within that. And I just like hated it. Didn't really realize I hated it at the time because we were traveling Monday to Thursday, Monday to Friday every single week. And it was just constant. But as I say, whenever COVID happened, that's when I realized. And like, I went from like graduate, like associate or graduate, senior associate, then up to manager. And then I got invited into the senior manager process, which I was not expecting. And my stomach dropped. And I was like, right, this is a telltale, because people would have. And then I had to turn down like going through the process, because I was like, I'm not prepared for the bit. I don't have a business case prepared. And the interviews in a week, loads of people had it prepared already because they knew they were going to get asked into it. And I was like, I'm not going to make myself look grim. And I know I don't want to do this anymore. So I like pulled out of the process, which was a whole thing to navigate anyway. People will bite their hand off for this. And I was like, I just know this isn't for me at all, and then I was like,
Well, you gave
but
that opportunity to someone else.
yeah, just because I was like, I'm not going to go through with something and make myself look bad. I don't have any of this stuff prepped. All these people have been preparing for this for months.
Well, Brett, thank you so much for sharing your story and for also sharing some pearls of wisdom when it comes to doing a career change and career transition. It has been a pleasure to have you on today.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
If you're currently navigating a career transition and don't know where to turn, head to whatdoyoudo.com and take the free career assessment today. Look forward to seeing you in the community.